Over the past month, I probably used the iPhone 14 Pro Max more thoroughly than any other version of the iPhone in previous years, comparing its 48 megapixel camera to my Sony a7 III in downtown LA for photography, and putting its cinematic mode head to head with my Sony FX9 cinema camera. And if I'm being honest, I really wasn't even expecting to use this phone that much. I mean, I really was just on the fence about even getting it. And it's not a huge upgrade from my iPhone 13 Pro Max. At first, I really didn't think it was necessary, to be honest. So many aspects of this phone are the same because Apple has really just mastered the software side of things. But I will say that the differences do really increase the quality of life over last year's version. All right, we're all friends here, right? We can be open and honest with each other. Let me be honest with you. I have a problem. I have an internal conflict whenever there's a new product that's released, and I think that's consumerism at large. We all have that in common. But whenever there's a new product that comes out, I kind of have to get it, but also don't have to. I don't know what's wrong with me. And although the iPhone 14 Pro Max has more in common with the 13 Pro Max that I had, just a month ago, there were a few differences that made it feel like it was worth buying. But disclaimer, this is definitely an S year, and by no means is this a necessary upgrade if you have a 13 Pro. And if you have a 12 Pro, I would say it's probably more worth upgrading, but still, even so, it's not a huge deal. Only if it makes sense financially. I mean, there are so many carrier deals out there and trade-in offers that make it make sense and make it easier to upgrade nowadays. You can almost get a phone for free if you look in the right places. Now let's kick things off with the camera. Cameras normally get the biggest focus and upgrades year over year, whether it be software or hardware, because that's really the biggest selling point to these new smartphones. And this year they made a huge advancement in hardware with the 48 megapixel sensor that was added to the iPhone Pro line. It really gives your photos greater detail when cropping in. You can crop, to your heart's desire, whatever you want to do, and also gives you more latitude in post because I feel like there's just more information in that file. Also, Pro RAW files are getting big now with 48 megapixel RAWs, but I'm not mad at it because I like editing my photos in post. Now, although the iPhone 14 Pro Max can't quite replace your dedicated mirrorless Pro camera, as we saw in the video that I published a couple weeks ago, it's still a good one-click solution for most people that just want to capture a moment and have the camera do most of the heavy lifting. They don't want to carry around and lug around a bunch of gear. They want to just take a picture and have it look good. And it looks good most of the time because the computational photography is getting so good. It's been like that for some time now. I'd say probably since the iPhone 11, even the 10 a little bit had some good computational photography, but the 11, 12, and 13 have been getting progressively better year over year, and the 14 is no different. This year, like I said, it's a refinement, and it isn't a reason enough alone to upgrade your phone, but it is getting a lot better. And if you want my deeper thoughts on camera specifically, I'll leave a link to that video right here. Now, when it comes to video, the iPhone is still first in class when compared to smartphones out there. Stabilization is great. Quality is really good now with ProRes 422. You get a lot of latitude, especially when you use apps like Filmic Pro to get log profiles and manual control over your camera. Now, I've done a fair bit of video, but I have been really blown away with what others have created with the iPhone 14 Pro on this platform, YouTube especially. I mean, this specific video right here from Joy Helms is amazing. I was blown away, and I saw this after I did my comparison video, and I was like, man, I really didn't do the iPhone justice. I could do more, and I'm committed to doing more, and I want to do more with the iPhone camera, and you're probably going to see more videos in the future about that, but this was amazing. Now, granted, most of the magic, I believe, came in his editing and his sound design. That's really where his strong suit is, and he also did lean into a lot of the strengths of the iPhone camera, the wide sharpness and using that dynamic range to his advantage, but most of it comes down to his composition, his editing, his transitions, motion blur, a lot of things that he put on top of the iPhone footage to make it look less digital. He also goes into full depth with how he broke down that specific video and how he shoots cinematic video on iPhone cameras. Feel free to check out his channel. His videos are amazing. But I think this perfectly shows how high the iPhone's camera ceiling is for video. I don't think any of us are doing enough with iPhone video, and I think we can do a lot more. Now, just like I said in my video comparing the 14 Pro Max to the Sony FX9, I do think that cinematic mode has a long way to go when it comes to edge detection, but the future is super bright. Now, as shallow as this may sound, the biggest feature that really stood out to me from the keynote was Dynamic Island. Now, a lot of people give the name slack, they don't like Dynamic Island, Island Boys. I get it. It's a name, but I like the feature. There is no doubt that this was the wow moment in the keynote. Now, leading up to this event, I was really disappointed in the design choice of turning the notch into a pill. All the leaks looked horrible, had the little eye shape, and I thought Apple was just making the pill just for the sake of doing something different to tell it apart from the 13 Pro. Like, they do that every year. It's not a far-fetched idea. They've done it several times year over year with different products, just changing the design just enough so people know, oh, you have the new iPhone. But after seeing how Apple enhanced the pill design with software and in turn creating this dynamic island, I was pretty much sold. This has to be the biggest refinement of the notch that any phone has ever had, and it made the iPhone feel like it was worth upgrading to. Apart from the functionality the island provides, having subtle and discrete UI animation makes iOS 16 feel more mature. Little things like the Face ID animation being black and coming out of the island instead of being in the middle of your screen feels like the iPhone is getting out of your way. And the same can be said for most of iOS 16. This is the first time in a long time that iOS is getting out of my way and turning into a tool. From the notifications being reduced to a number at the bottom of the lock screen and not blocking my lock screen and my beautiful pictures that I want to see, to the dynamic being tucked away in a cutout and just appearing when you need it, it's clear that the quality of life was the focus of this year's iOS 16 update. That paired with other little things like haptic feedback on the keyboard really added to the experience for me. Now, admittedly, I recognize that Apple is just giving me solutions to the problems that they've created for me, and lots of these updates have been on Android for years. And I'm just glad that they've made the changes and that they're present in today's iOS. Now let's talk about the other less impactful things that I just like about this year's iPhone real quick. Namely, the fit and finish. This is probably my favorite black color on an iPhone since the jet black iPhone on the iPhone 7 Plus, I think it was back in the day. I don't know what it is, but it just feels more grippy this year, and I don't know if it's like the coating that they used, or I don't know what it is, but I've been using this phone a lot more without a case, which is kind of dangerous. But I like it. Out of all of the things that I like about the iPhone this year, there are a few things that I still don't like. And it's not really so much the iPhone's fault, but more so things that I dislike about Apple's ethos. Now, the main thing that really irks me is the lack of RCS messaging with Android users. Now, I get it, iMessage, is amazing, Blue Bubble Boys or Screen Bubble Boys or whoever. But at this point, it just feels petty. Like, give me RCS, please. It's something that's universally accepted amongst all the carriers. I want to be able to get read receipts and reactions with Android users, because at this point you're just making the experience less enjoyable for your iPhone users. Because there are people out there that have Android phones. It's just a fact of life. This beef is so stupid at this point. Also, not fully giving us reins over customization. Like, they gave us a lot of cool lock screen customization options, and of course we have widgets and all that now. But it's just like a taste, right? Like, because even with the portrait mode lock screen, only being able to use certain photos with it and having to resize them just right in order for that 3D effect to pop on is pretty annoying. I just want it to work with every photo. I want to be able to customize it the way I want to. And the always on display is just kind of whack. Like, not giving us the ability to just have a black always on display is kind of wild. Like, I don't want to see my image in my lock screen when my screen's locked, and I still want to see the time. Give me the ability to just have a black screen and a clock, or a black screen and a couple notifications. Like, the always on display is pretty whack, and hopefully they just change it with software, because I think that's probably the main thing that can just be changed through an update. Give me the option. Now, these are all things that you just kind of have to deal with when you get an iPhone, and a lot of people, that's the reason why they don't get iPhones, because they don't want to adopt this ethos and this ecosystem that is Apple and just use the phone the way they want you to use the phone that you paid for. Now, with all that being said, I am very happy with my purchase. I think that this was a good upgrade for me, just being who I am and, being kind of into tech. I don't think it's necessary if you have a 13 Pro or a 12, and especially it's not necessary if you have like a 13 going to a 14. That's like the same phone. But the enhancements were nice. Dynamic Island is nice, and I feel like if you want to get the true iOS 16 experience, you kind of have to have an iPhone 14 Pro, because the refinement just feels really mature, and like I said earlier, it just feels like it's getting out of my way, and it's more discreet. But if you guys like this video and you want to see many more like it, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. It's been a pleasure as usual. Thank you for watching. Until next time.